Yeah, we were just doing a little preamble before we hit record, which is getting quite funny. So we figured we better actually record. But
It was gold.
yeah,
Wasting all this gold.
that's golden footage. So yeah, we were saying, and if you've listened to any amount of episodes, like literally more than one.
And if you haven't, you should listen to all of them
Yes.
so you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. You might notice every once in a while you hear like this glug 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 noise, and it's not Greg drinking his beer, although it could be. It could be. But it's actually a Skype related noise. We're trying to figure it out. And Greg heard it on a news telecast or something?
I was watching a news show and they had a correspondent that had Skyped in and it was doing that.
Yeah, so we're not the only ones. Even the professionals do that.
We're professionals.
I mean, yeah, other professionals.
Even people getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. People who are actually getting paid for their work.
So this is a passion, a labor of love for us.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, we're at episode 40, and we've kind of been alternating with a video one week, a podcast the next, and we're probably going to do that throughout the summer.
Do that for a little bit, yeah, just because I've been inspired to do some. I've done a lot of filming the last week or so because it's been hot and I'm trying to get things in, and I've just decided to film stuff. I haven't looked at any of the films I've made. They could be horrible. Mm-hmm. So hopefully I don't know, because it was really hot and I'm sweating to death, and I look kind of sun drenched. But hopefully they're useful videos, useful content for people that are doing similar things. We'll see. Just whenever I'm out in my garden, this would be interesting. People might want to see this. I better get the camera, get the tripod, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Try to throw something together. So they're not high production value videos, but they're the content, not the filming.
Yeah.
This is not Ridley Scott quality work here, but the content should be interesting because it's stuff. Whenever I'm doing something that I think, a lot of people don't do this, or I've heard people say things that are the contrary of what I'm doing right now. Anything like that, anything where I think, some people might be getting mixed messages out there. I'm going to show them exactly how I deal with this problem or this situation. Anything like that. If I've got an extra, half an hour, I'll get out the camera gear and try to make a video of that.
Yeah. It's been good. I mean, I think the videos are turning out great. I mean, they're getting a lot of views on Facebook. Our YouTube channel's slowly growing. So, yeah, it's good. It's great. And thankfully right now I am in my basement, which is where my office is. And, normally I really can't stand being down here because, on a nice sunny day or whatever, I prefer to be upstairs on a laptop where I can see outside. But the last couple of days, I haven't minded being down here at all.
Yeah, no, and, normally on a nice sunny day, I like to be actually outside. And last couple of days, I've been it's been so warm, the ideal time to get all the squashes and heat-loving things in. Man, it's hot out there. Today, I really went at it hard. And I'm not one of these people that, I don't know about you, Dave, but, I've never bought into this. You should have a bottle of water and take a sip every 5 minutes when you're outside. When you go for, I don't really do this very often, but I know you do. You go for hikes and stuff like that once in a while, right?
Yeah, I do.
Do you bring a bottle of water every time you go hiking?
We usually do, but we quite often just leave it in the vehicle and then, get it when we're done.
Yeah, like when you go hiking, how long are you hiking for?
45 minutes to an hour.
Like, why on earth do you need to bring water? I'm telling you, like, I used to do these hardcore fishing trips where I just put a backpack on and go in the woods for a week, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, I would wake up in the morning and make a pot of coffee and drink the whole pot. So that's about 7 cups of water. And then I would not drink until like 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I'd be sweating, and I remember one day I really pushed it hard, and I had a small amount of water I put aside,
Mm-hmm.
and I drank that by, I don't know, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I had a flask of whiskey that I drank for the remainder of the day. And this was on a hot day. This is a hot day where I'm hiking down a river with a backpack on, with waders on, and fishing at the same time, and covering, I don't know, X kilometers, in the bush like that. So this isn't a trail. This is, hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember by the time I got my camp set up, which is around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night, I was so thirsty. I mean, my lips were dry. I probably looked, really dehydrated.
Yeah.
And I remember I made a big fire. And remember, I'm in the woods here, so I got to boil my water, right? You can't just drink.
Yeah.
You drink, you get very sick. There's a risk, right? So I really remember it vividly. It's probably the most thirsty I've ever been. Because remember, I'd gone, I don't know, I'd gone 12 hours on a cup of water and a flask of whiskey, which is not hydration.
No, it's not.
And so I was really dehydrated. And I remember boiling the water and then putting the pot in the river so it would cool down, and just watching that water. I kept testing it, waiting for that water to be drinkable. And I remember that evening, I just drank water all night. Like, I drank water until I fell asleep. I'd boil a pot of water, drink the whole thing, boil another pot of water, drink the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that you can go quite a while without drinking water. I mean, you can go 7 days, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you're kind of useless after day 3. You're really kind of shot. You're just slowly dying after day 3.
Yeah. I don't, we're only going for an hour walk, but like today, a lot of times I don't need a drink till I get home or whatever, but today it was 30 degrees Celsius by 10 in the morning.
I know. I went out and worked in the garden, and I'd almost like if I was camping, I drank a big pot of coffee in the morning, and then I went outside around 9, and I was outside until 1:30. And the only thing I had was a couple radishes, which, man, those radishes are good. Anyway, I had a couple radishes, but that's it. And, my general indication is if I start to feel weird, and by the time I came inside, I felt weird. Like, I was making beds for my garden with rocks and stuff like that. And that's the topic we're going to talk about today. Yeah. But anyway, each rock I had to go find, there's a small hill right next to my property where there's just rocks everywhere. Yeah. So I was like walking over and grabbing boulders and bringing them back. It was like kind of like, what you'd see someone do. If you ever watch like an old movie where all the prisoners are like getting rocks. Yeah. And there's a guy with a whip. It's kind of like that. Yeah. Just a rock carrier, rock carrying man. Right. So I did that till I started to get, just feel really strange. Yeah. And then I came in and I literally have been drinking water. Like, I came inside around 1:30 and I took a shower and had something to eat. And I've been drinking cup after cup after cup of water ever since. I must have lost I wish I'd weighed myself before and after. I bet you I lost 2 liters of water out there, at least.
Oh, yeah. Well, on that walk, just, for an hour this morning, I know I lost some fluid for sure.
Well, and it's not like you're out there with your shirt off.
I was today, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. How's that for a visual?
It must have been a team of women.
Yeah, no, it was just me and my wife and our 5-year-old. Yeah.
Just like one of those Axe body spray commercials.
It totally was. In fact, the film crew was there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'll let you know when it's on.
Thank God that stuff wasn't invented when I was a teenager. I would have bought it.
I know.
I've been a total sucker. What we had, like brute fabrication.
You know what's funny? Yeah. You know what's funny? My son, my oldest son, who's in grade 5, only weeks ago was complaining that we didn't get him any because one of his friends was wearing it at school.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, no.
That's good marketing, man. That's amazing marketing.
Works.
Yeah, you literally define the smell of a generation of males.
Yeah.
It's amazing, For us, it was like
Sidetrack.
I karate or whatever.
Yeah. No, it is. But yeah, it's fascinating. We should someday we'll just do an episode where we talk nothing about gardening.
That's
wait, that's today.
We've already done that. Okay, so we should get to the content.
Right, content.
So we're going to do two things today. We're going to talk about what's the topic today? Defining your garden bed. So we're going to talk about the idea of, in the old days, a garden was just a rectangle.
Yeah.
And with rows, right? Which is fine. But these days, people like to have everything in a box or some sort of border or whatever. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The other thing I want to do just to start off is to do a little follow-up on an episode. I don't know what number that was. Maybe it was an episode on composting or something. But we were talking about composting, and we were talking about vermicomposting. And I said something like, I think it's a waste of time and blah, 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 blah. And I think one of the topics was that I cannot compost. I think this is how it all came up. I said I can't compost in my backyard because I've got black bears and porcupines and rabbits and squirrels and all those things. Just I've tried it here, and once the animals know that there's a pile of dirt that's got food under the dirt, it's over. Yeah. They're all in there getting at everything. So someone said you should do vermicomposting in your garage, and I said something like, it's going to smell, and I don't want to do that, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And they shot back and said, it won't smell. I said, well, okay, honestly, I really don't, I've never tried it. Maybe I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. So I designed one of these basically, I got two Rubbermaid containers. Yeah. Free plug for Rubbermaid. I'm going to check in the mail. Anyway, two Rubbermaid containers that sort of fit into one another, because you need two containers that fit into one another. Yeah. And the top container, you poke some holes in it so water can drip out. Yeah. And the low container gathers that water, and you can use that water as an amazing fertilizer, and you got to drain it out once in a while. Right. And I put some worms in there. I had some fresh, really, really well composted horse manure that was full of little tiny, looked like red wigglers to me, so I threw those in there. And started throwing stuff in the compost, and this was in my garage. I got a small sort of drive-in garage type thing, where it stays reasonably cool in the summer, and it never goes below freezing in the winter. In the winter it's about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius all winter long, and in the summer even today. So today it was reasonably cool. So I gave it a shot, and it is true. There was no smell in my garage. Yeah. And it totally worked, and I would check it periodically, and there'd be more and more worms. They were multiplying in there, and there was probably a few dozen. And after about 3 or 4 months, there was dozens, and it's just teeming with worms. Yeah. So in that sense, it was a success. Right. Now that said, was it keeping up with the supply of compost that my family and I generate? Yeah. No way. No way. We fill a bowl a day with stuff because we cook all our food from scratch. Right. So there's and we've got young children that don't always eat the food you give them, no matter how much you threaten them. So we generate about, I don't know, 2 liters of compost almost every day. Yeah. So there's no way that I would need a wall of vermicomposting. Or more, perhaps. It just cannot keep up. So it's really not a solution to being in a rural place and wanting to compost and not being able to. I would have to take that on a scale that would hijack a good deal of the space in my garage. Right. And that would not be good. No. The reason I'm bringing this up is that if anyone knows of a good solution for composting in a rural setting where you've got black bears and you've got animals and you've got all these different things that can get in, and I don't know that there is one. So someone's going to say, build a giant concrete composting thing. Huge concrete. I'm not going to do that. No. Let me rephrase this. A way I can do this where it's not going to cost a fortune. Right. But anything that's reasonably heavy, a black bear will get into no problemo. So yeah, I'm really perplexed to know. I mean, I know that I can, if I save it all up in my freezer and I bury it really well.
Yeah.
Nothing will get at it. You know, if you bury something about a foot deep, there's a reason dogs bury their bones, and they bury them about a foot deep. You know, because that's about the depth that you need to prevent anything.
Smell.
Yeah, like, you know, keep the smell down. But that's not useful on a weekly basis.
No.
Right? So that is a solution. If I just, and also I don't have a freezer space. We have a mini. We have a deep freeze, but it's one of those smaller ones, right?
A mini one, yeah.
And it's full. Like, you know, it's periodically, you know, if it's full of bread and, you know, whenever something goes on sale, we buy like 50 of it and fill the freezer. So it's full. I went to that. What's that place? Gateway. Chickens. $2 for a chicken. $2.
A whole chicken?
Yeah, I bought 20 chickens.
They fall off a truck? They must have fallen off a truck.
Well, they were frozen, but I was going to freeze them anyway.
Yeah.
$2 for a whole chicken.
That's crazy.
Man, and they're a relatively small chicken.
Yeah.
Which is better. Like, that's the kind of Kentucky Fried Chicken. You're like, that's like a 4 or 5 week old chicken.
The young, tender chickens.
5 weeks sounds immoral.
That
but anyway,
does.
It was delicious.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. All right. So, what are we talking about today? Define planting spaces. I think it's very useful in a garden to, I mean, it looks nice and there's a nice aesthetic when everything has some sort of border. But the main reason I like to have, and if anyone's seen the sort of, I call it an aerial view, but I just walk up the hill and take a picture from the hill. Aerial view of my garden, you can tell that you can tell where you're supposed to walk and you can tell where you're not supposed to walk because every garden bed's defined in some way. Some are logs, some are lumber, and some are just rocks. The main thing that this really does is it keeps you from walking on your soil. Yeah. I've never, I have a small business where I build gardens for people, and just about everyone I build a garden for, the first thing they do, I put the bed, I define the bed, I put the soil down, I got this nice loose soil, put a mulch down, and then I come over and there's footprints all over the garden. Yeah. Like, why are you walking on that? You know, it's built. It's a size where you can reach in from any side. It chose that size for that reason. Why do people have to walk on this? So the good thing about having it defined like that is it keeps you and other people, ideally, from walking on the soil, because you don't want to do that, right? You want to stay off the soil. You don't want to compact your soil. It's just not good for your plants. And also, sometimes, depending on the material you use for defining a bed, it can even benefit the crops in certain regards, and we'll talk about that. And I'm not going to go into a diatribe on this, as I've already done it to death. You don't need raised beds. And if you like raised beds, sure, go for it. Although you might want to listen to my episode where I say it's a bad idea, but you don't need them. And I don't recommend them if that's not clear. If you want a wooden box, I would say just, a 2x6 is all you need. 6 inches high is all you need. That's including the mulch. So I just put a garden bed in the other day. It's a 2x6, and the soil is about 4 inches high, and then there's 2 inches of mulch. So I'm barely above grade, and I'm totally confident I'll have great success in that garden bed. In terms of dimensions, I would say 4 by 10, 4 feet by 10 feet, or like a meter by 3 meters, to be crude. I wouldn't go any bigger than that. You don't want it any wider than 4 feet, right? Because that way you can reach. You can reach into the middle. You can access every space in that garden box. Yeah. Without having to kneel on the soil or, put your hands on the soil or whatever. That's why you want a dimension like that. And I say 10 feet long because if it's anything longer than that, you have to walk all the way around it to get to other parts of your garden. So I find that about 10 feet, 8 feet's nice too. But the longer your garden is, the more garden you get out of your lumber, if you're buying lumber. Right. and if you're buying lumber, I would try to find a source of rough milled lumber, which you cannot buy at hardware stores. They do not sell it. They sell something like that at one of the hardware stores out here, but it's treated. Mm. It's called a garden tie, I think they call it.
Yeah.
But it's treated. Mm. So if I'm growing food in that, I don't want all that rubbish.
No.
Right? So, but you can find it on, I've used Kijiji, and there's guys with mills, and you can get that rough milled lumber.
Yeah.
So that's an option, but these things cost money, right? And then also the rough milled lumber just lasts longer and it's easier to work with.
Right.
You can use, I've heard people suggest using cinder blocks, which you can buy, or if you can source them for free, that's even better. Mm-hmm. So they're going to last a very long time. And they also hold heat. They heat up. And if you read a lot of stuff online, they'll say, "Oh, don't use cinder blocks; they get too hot." Right. Well, that's someone writing from Georgia or Florida or someplace that's hot. Here in this part of the world, heat's not.
Other than today and yesterday.
Exactly, but not enough heat is the problem. Even so, yesterday I was out in my garden. I was planting pumpkins, and I only had to go down 2 inches into the soil, and it was remarkably cooler. I would say maybe 10 degrees. The heat hadn't even gotten down that far. Mm-hmm. So you don't, rock's not a problem. This, around here, that's,
yeah.
Don't worry about your gardens being too hot. Don't worry about that, or a cinder block for that matter. So those are some options for things that you can use that are dimensional, that are easy to work with, but they usually cost money. Mm-hmm. What I really wanted the episode here to be about is different free materials that are available and which ones one might use, what you might recommend. So to start off, there's this thing people always talk about, growing potatoes in tires. Have you ever seen people talk about that? You get an old tire off your car and you fill it full of dirt and stick some potatoes in it. And I've done a bit of reading about this, and from what I can tell, my concerns about this are justified. So, in the short term, sure, right? If you got some tires kicking around and you've been putting off putting a garden in, and by the way, for those of you that have been putting off putting a garden in, man, get your garden in. You're running out of time. Running out of time to, it's getting down to the wire really to have a decent yield, a decent crop. Anyway, sure, go for it in the short term, but over the long term, those tires break down and they leach toxic compounds into your soil over time. So yeah, if you're gonna set up a long-term garden, I wouldn't do it. But if you just got some tires and you want to do something this year, this probably wouldn't be quite as toxic.
Right. Yeah.
So do your own research, and it's your decision. But certainly over the long term, I wouldn't recommend. Sometimes people use bricks, like just ordinary red bricks. I can say from experience, they're more trouble with than they're worth. They just don't stay in place. They move around. Another thing with things like bricks or rocks, what I'm going to talk about next, is that if your garden is on a lawn, so my garden, the area where my garden is, I covered the entire area where I had planned the garden to be with wood chips. I covered the whole thing with cardboard, and then I covered the whole thing with wood chips, and just killed everything underneath the wood chips, and then started building my beds. So I can use rocks and bricks and things like that. Or I don't use bricks because I think they're a real pain. They're not big enough, and they move around, and they're just not. But I mean, if that's what you got, use them, sure. Right. But they don't stay in place, is what I'm trying to say. They tend to move around. You lay them all. When you have bricks, you become inclined to make everything very dimensional because the bricks are dimensional. And what you'll find is that your dimensions never seem to stay where they are.
Yeah.
So it tends to look sloppy really quickly. I guess if that doesn't matter to you, or if you're lucky and things don't move around, sure, maybe there's some trick that I don't quite understand. But when I've tried to use them, I just get really frustrated with them. They don't seem to stay in place, and they shift and they move and they don't stay level. And maybe it's just my own internal retentiveness or something like that. When I have brooks, I want everything to be perfect, and it never stays perfect. So I find it really annoying.
Yeah.
Rocks, by contrast, they're by nature non-dimensional. Mm-hmm. So the fact that if I make a circle or an oval or a square and it doesn't stay perfect, I don't really care, because you can't get it perfect anyway because they're rocks. Yeah. So they sort of have a real natural look. This half of my garden is rocks, and the other half of the garden is lumber. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I like the rocks more. It looks like the garden just rose out of the ground. It looks very Stonehenge-y. It looks like some ancient druids conjured it with magic or something. It just looks really neat. Whereas the wood just looks like some really poor carpenter slapped them together, which is exactly right. Yeah. Another thing about rocks is they're free. They're going to last forever. They leach minerals into your soil very slowly, but minerals are good. They also can help your soil retain water. They're kind of a mulch, really, if you think about it. If you have a wooden box, your roots move along laterally, and then when they hit the box, they stop and they just come back, right? Because it's a wall. Mm-hmm. But when you're planting with a border of rocks, really the rocks are above grade and your plant's roots are below grade. And your roots can just travel on, along, and underneath the rocks. And underneath the rocks, it really never dries out. Mm. You remember when you were a kid and you were looking for worms to go fishing, or you're looking to find salamanders so you could put them in a jar and ruin their life. The soil underneath rocks never seems to dry out, and so when your plants find your plant roots find their way underneath those rocks, there's real benefits for them. So the real advantage is using rocks, and it's also a good place for beneficials to hang out, your toads and garter snakes and stuff like that, the things that kill the things you don't want. But the thing about rocks and bricks is that they're no good for gardening and grass. So that is to say, if you're putting a garden bed down on your lawn, and you just put rocks down, the weeds are going to grow in between the rocks. The weeds are going to, they're not going to keep anything out of your garden. No. If anything, all the grass will love growing around the rocks. Things love growing right next to rocks, to the extent that when I'm planting my seeds, I tend to plant them as close to the rocks as I can. Because things just love growing near cracks of rocks and near edges of rocks. And you'll also find, if you had a field with, just say, soil, and you threw a big rock in the center of the field, there'd be things growing around that rock that wouldn't grow anywhere else. Yeah. As the rock would create moisture retention, and it just creates a little sort of ecosystem or microclimate that allows for ideal conditions for certain kinds of plants. So, big fan of rocks. Did I mention they're free?
Yeah, you did.
Another inexpensive thing a lot of people like to use is railroad ties, because you can usually sort. I got a friend that wanted to give me a whole bunch of them, so I did some reading on that, and they are very, very, very toxic. And it's basically lumber that's been dipped in a toxic soup so that they'll never rot.
Lovely.
That's why. That's why they work so well. That's why they can build a railroad on them, and they're sitting on the ground. If you want wood to rot, you put it on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. Railroad tie, you stick that on the ground, it lasts a long time, a lifetime, right? Yeah. They are, and all that stuff in there can go into your soil, and not all that stuff breaks down. A lot of it just becomes available in your soil, and some of it can be, from what I've read anyway, can find its way into the things you're eating. So I would not, despite the fact that they look really cool, and it's nice big wood, and it's not going to rot, and it's relatively cheap. Maybe a good idea for a flower garden, I suppose, but not for a vegetable garden. Another thing I really like is trees. And dead or otherwise, I wouldn't recommend just cutting down trees to make boxes. But if you've got if you own a lot of land and you've got lots of trees, and maybe trees need some thinning out or whatever, sure. But I like to use dead trees. They're number one, they're already on the ground, so half your work's already done for you. Also, if they're a bit rotten or a bit punky, they don't weigh nearly as much as live trees, so they're easier to work with. Right? And if you got a tree that's been on the ground for a while, but it's not exactly on the ground, it's usually dried out. Or dead standing trees are good like that too. But the thing about the ones that are partly rotted is that they're really easy to cut. The wood is just weak, right? It's not like it's not cardboard, but somewhere between wood and cardboard texture. Nowhere near as heavy, so they're easy to move around. And because they've been rotting on the ground, that rotten wood's actually charged up with a lot of nutrients, right? Because it's been absorbing nutrients out of the soil for years, right? And it's also, full of different organisms that are breaking down the wood. A lot of them are good for your soil. And the other benefit of those, so they're easy to work with, and I just position them using pegs, nothing fancy. Like I put them where I want them, and on the outside of the garden bed, I just put pegs in the ground. On the inside, you put your soil, so that keeps the log from rolling in, and the peg keeps the log from rolling out.
Yeah. So
it's the cheapest, quickest thing, and you just put your logs down into a rectangle, and just peg the outside, and start throwing, what I use, some manure or whatever, or compost. You throw that into until you got about 4 inches of soil, and you're done, right?
Yeah.
And when they finally, I've got one of my beds is probably on its last legs. When those rotten logs really start to lose it and they're not holding their integrity anymore, you can smash them up and use them as mulch. So that's very
nice.
it just all fits together nicely. You're not really you carry the log into your garden and it never leaves. Even when it ceases to function as a border or a bed or a box, you smash it up and use it as a mulch. And then it feeds your soil. So that's to me very elegant, very efficient. The rocks are nice because they last forever. You do it once, and it's a defined bed until you're dead.
Right.
It could be there 1,000 years after you're gone. Someone kept using your garden. And the beauty of the trees is that you carry it into your garden. You never have to carry it out. Another thing I've seen people use is hay bales. So they'll buy a bunch of hay bales and arrange them into a rectangle and throw soil in the middle. And so, that's not free. You got to, it's usually, maybe there are places you can get it. I'm talking about hay bales where it's like those 2-string hay bales. They're about, I don't know, a foot, maybe 1.5 feet high and 1.5 feet wide by about 2 feet wide. So I've never been able to find those free. Usually on the the day after Halloween, a couple people will throw those out. But if you're going to need a bunch of those, you're going to need a dozen of those to define a bed. They take up a lot of space because they're so wide. So all that space is kind of wasted. But they do work really well, right? They hold a lot of heat. They generate heat. If you don't fill your soil all the way up to the top of their height, which I wouldn't recommend, they provide a little bit of shelter from the wind. When you've got young seedlings and growing and stuff like that, it's nice to have a bit of protection, right? They can, and they generate heat because they're, you're watering, you've got soil in there, and they're bioactive, right? So they're creating heat, and your plants want heat. When you're trying to get your garden in April, May, it's still cool. You want anything that's going to add heat to your garden, this part of the world, you want it. And once the hay bale starts to lose its integrity and starts to fall apart, you can use it as a mulch, right? So another nice material that you can bring into your garden, you never have to bring out, and it benefits your soil. Not free. If you can source it, maybe you live in a rural area where there's farmers throwing away hay bales all the time, but normally they use it for something. They buy it to feed to their livestock. But sometimes the hay goes off and their livestock won't eat it, but then they tend to use it as bedding, or they paid for it, so it can be you get that for free. But sometimes you can get hay bales for $3 or $5 or something like that. So you could put a bed in for, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So maybe for $50. So it's going to cost about the same as lumber for a bed. And one final thing I wanted to talk about is something I've never tried this. I've read it Actually, I tried it once. I tried it and didn't complete it because it was so ridiculous. It's one of those things where you're reading the garden book and you think, this is a great idea. And then you start doing it and you're like, this is a stupid idea. Mm-hmm. So, and someone out there is going to be offended by me saying that, but I'm sorry. It's just my experience of it. So the idea is, let's say you've got a lawn and you want to build a garden on your lawn. And you want the garden to be 4 feet by 10 feet, let's say, for instance. Mm-hmm. Okay? And your lawn is sod, right? So what they suggest is that you cut the sod out of the area where you want your garden to be.
Okay.
And you cut that sod into like bricks. Right. And you stack the sod up around the border. So you make the border out of sod.
Really?
And it sort of grows in. And then you bring some soil in and put the soil in the hole. Right? So you've got like a little sod wall that's, let's say 6 inches high, because a hunk of sod's about 3 or 4 inches thick, right? Yeah. So if you plan it out right, you can get a 4 by 10 garden that's got a 8-inch wide, 6-inch high sod wall around it, which sounds, it's kind of like a living wall, and sounds like a good idea, but it's full of grass and weeds. They're going to want to migrate into your, it is not a border. You're going to have to, every year you're going to have to cut that back, right? Because it's going to want to grow into your garden. And it's not as easy to do as that sounds. It is exhausting trying to cut sod out of a lawn. It's not as easy as one might think. You need the right tools. It's right down on the ground. It is back-breaking hardware, and to get them cut perfectly so they come up so they're like bricks, again, tricky. As you get tired, you start ripping them and tearing them and wrecking them, and you screw this. That's sort of what happened. I started with that idea. Hey, I'm going to use these, and this is a great idea. And I got about halfway through. I said I was ripping them all up.
Terrible idea.
And so I ended up just throwing all the sod into my compost bin. Yeah. And that was my old property. I just got some wood.
That's funny.
Anyway, so yeah, there's some ideas, some things to chew on, and it's again, you don't need to do any of that. You can just have a giant area that's 20 by 20, and just put your stuff in rows, and have the ditches. But I don't know what's the term for the area between the rows? Is a term a furrow?
Sounds good to me.
Oh, and there's a furrow. Anyway, there's the sort of ditch part the place you walk in that's between the rows. That's a simple way to do a garden. Yeah. You don't need to have all that stuff. I have all these sort of defined beds because it just looks nice and I like it, and it helps me stay organized, and just creates an aesthetic I like anyway. Awesome. So those are some options for doing that on the cheap.
Cool. Yeah. Well, there you go. Episode 40. Anything else we wanted to cover before we go? Everything good? Well, of course, everybody can, if you're not listening to this on iTunes, you can find us on iTunes. You can make sure you're a fan on Facebook. We've got, I think just today we passed 1,400 Facebook fans, which is really good.
That's great.
I think those videos are helping a lot for that. So if you are a fan and you see some of our stuff, I should say some of Greg's stuff on Facebook, just a quick share, quick share, quick comment.
All that stuff helps.
It all helps. We're on the, we're always looking for strategic partners, and all that stuff helps with our stats. And speaking of that, we, if you really like the show and you want to support the show, one of these days, Greg Greg writes a column. We'll talk about that first with Local Express. So you can check the Local Express online magazine, I guess we'll call it. And he's got the what is it, Growing with Greg? Is that what we call it?
Growing Food with Greg.
Growing Food with Greg. That's what it is. So you can check that. And
the columns all the same content as the show. That is to say, I'm not talking about flowers and ornament. I'm talking about food.
Right.
And I think that's what makes the column unique. Most of the other gardening columns I see are mostly about, how things look, whereas the column's about how to make food.
How to make good food. Good food.